In April 1942, the largest surrender in American military history took place. 75,000 soldiers, American and Filipino. They expected to become prisoners of war. They expected the rules of war to apply. What happened next was not in any rule book. Over the following days, thousands would die, not in battle, not from bombs or bullets, but from walking. 65 miles through the Philippine jungle. Under the Pacific sun, without food, without water, without mercy. The Japanese military called it a transfer of prisoners. History calls it something else: the Bataan Death March. To understand what happened, we must go back. December 1941, hours after Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces invaded the Philippines. American and Filipino troops were unprepared, outnumbered, outgunned. They retreated to a peninsula called Bataan, a desperate last stand. For 4 months they held the line. Sick, starving, running out of everything. They called themselves the Battling Bastards of Bataan. No mama, no papa, no Uncle Sam. General Douglas MacArthur had already evacuated to Australia. His famous words, "I shall return." But for the men left behind, there would be no return. On April 9, 1942, Major General Edward King made a decision. He surrendered. "75,000 men laid down their weapons. 12,000 Americans, 63,000 Filipinos. The largest surrender in American history. They believed the worst was over. They were wrong. The Japanese had expected 25,000 prisoners. They got 3 times that number, but that does not explain what followed. The march began on April 10, 1942, from Mariveles. 65 miles to Camp O'Donnell. What happened on that road has been documented by hundreds of survivors. Men who had already been starving for weeks were given almost no food, almost no water. In tropical heat exceeding 100 degrees.
Those who fell were not helped up. According to sworn testimony, those who fell were often killed. Survivors describe seeing men beaten for drinking from puddles. Others beaten for trying to help a fallen comrade. Some were forced to sit in the open sun for hours,
until they collapsed.
Without shade, without water, until they collapsed. The march took between 5 and 9 days, depending on when each group started. Some men walked the entire distance. Others were packed into freight trains. The trains were so crowded that men died standing up. No room to fall. There was no space. This was not combat. These were unarmed prisoners. The Geneva Convention of 1929 had clear rules. Japan had signed it. Prisoners must be treated humanely, given adequate food and water, protected from violence. None of this happened. And according to investigators, this was not random cruelty. Orders came from command. General Homma commanded the Japanese forces in the Philippines. After the war, he claimed he did not know. He said he was focused on the next battle. The tribunal did not believe him. But here is the question historians still debate. Was this systematic or something else entirely? Japanese military culture had a specific view. Surrender was the ultimate shame. A soldier who surrendered had no honor. And a man with no honor, perhaps, was not fully a man. This is not an excuse. It is an attempt to understand. How 75,000 prisoners could be treated this way by an army that considered itself disciplined and honorable. The march ended at Camp O'Donnell, but the dying did not stop. Disease spread immediately: malaria, dysentery, typhoid. Men died by the hundreds, then by the thousands. Survivors describe burying 50 men a day, then 100. The exact numbers are still debated. "7,000 died on the march itself. Another 20,000 died in the camps that followed.
Some historians put the total much higher. The truth is, we may never know exactly. Because many of the dead were never identified. Many were buried in mass graves. Some were never buried at all. After the war, the United States held tribunals. General Homma was tried for war crimes. He was found guilty and executed by firing squad in 1946. The survivors returned home, but part of them never left that road. Many could not speak about it for decades. The trauma was too deep, too incomprehensible. How do you explain to your family what you saw on that march? How do you explain what humans are capable of? Some survivors dedicated their lives to making sure the world remembered. They testified at tribunals. They wrote memoirs. They returned to the Philippines to walk the same road. To honor the men who did not survive. Every April, there is a memorial march. Veterans, their families, Filipinos who remember. They walk together to remember what happened and to ask why. 80 years have passed. The last survivors are nearly gone. Soon there will be no one left who walked that road. But the questions they carried remain. How did this happen?
Never again.
Could it happen again? There are no comfortable answers, only the obligation to remember. The road from Mariveles to Camp O'Donnell still exists. The jungle has reclaimed much of it, but the memory remains. 65 miles, 75,000 men. Thousands who never finished. This was the Bataan Death March, and we must never forget.